what is it like to be in solitary confinement? It is very difficult to explain this in words.
Kim, how's it going? So you went to Trader Joe's today? What happened?
You know, there's a thing about the Costa Mesa Trader Joe's. It feels very woke there, and I try to avoid it. You know, I was there, right, and there's this guy, and he's like in his 40s, he's like some LA guy that moved to OC, and he's sitting there, he's trying to talk up the girl that's like at the counter, you know, in front of me, and he's trying to speak Spanish, he's trying to like, you know, really impress her, and she's a, you know, a woman from like Central America, very pretty, very well done, and she's like, oh, you speak good Spanish, and she's talking to him, and I'm sitting there, and then when she leaves, I try to just make a little small talk.
What's up, guys?
And the guy snubs me.
You guys good?
The guy snubs me, and I realize, like, you know, he didn't even look at me.
Yeah.
So he's like
Joe's,
rude.
I know that had to be a good story.
Yeah. So,
How you doing?
we're good. How are you?
Good, man. I'm looking forward tonight. John Strand is coming
We
down.
heard.
I think he sent me a text. He's about 2 minutes away, so he should be here
It's exciting, Tony.
any minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be good because you know, he just got out, like you guys know, a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
And he's thriving already.
Yeah.
He's been a busy man.
He's got great people around him, great friends. He's got a guy named Russ that's been his close friend for a long time, and that's what you need, you know.
Yeah.
So
I remember we saw him about a year ago, maybe a little more.
right before he went in. So I think what's important too is that you know, we help him always hold the line in terms of never being a victim, right? Always being on offense.
Yeah.
And tonight I want to, you know, when we sit down and talk with him, I want to stay away from the victimhood stuff and more about how he's overcome what he's been through, and I'm proud of him. So yeah, he should be here any second. So we'll see.
I bet he's going to take it to them now.
Yeah, that's
so.
what we're hoping for.
The ball's
you
in
know.
his court.
Ball's in his court, and he handles himself perfectly. He's a gentleman, smart guy, young guy. He's got a long, exciting life ahead of him, and we, you know, we admire him for what he's done, and that's why we invited him in. He's actually, so people know who are watching right now, he's going to be our very first guest. We're 8 episodes in, and I see a shadow coming through the window right now.
I
think he's walking up here pretty soon, but.
These tyrants, they overplayed their hand with him. They overplayed their hand with everybody.
Absolutely.
But they picked the wrong guy with John.
They certainly did, yeah. So he held the standard high, and that's what it takes.
Yeah.
Holy shit!
Oh, what's going on over
Look
here?
at this fucking guy.
Oh my God.
God, a year you were standing in here. Right before you left. Oh, you look great, man. How are you? I don't even know what it means to see you. You look fucking great.
Thank you.
Look at this fucking guy.
I feel pretty great.
John, it's good to see you, man.
Saved a spot for me.
We did.
Good to see you, brother.
Kept the food warm.
Long time.
Look at that hair.
Yeah.
Get the new hairstyle going.
It grows in a year. It turns out.
Good.
You're an easy rider now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it's you.
In the flesh.
Feeling good?
Yeah, man. I feel amazing, actually.
How was your drive?
The drive was breezy.
It's crazy because, you know, we last saw each other a year ago, right?
A little
About
over a year ago.
End of July. And it went fast. It went fast for us.
Yeah.
I'm sure it didn't go fast for you.
It did not go fast for me.
No,
You know?
no.
Let's have a drink, man. Let's have a drink. You know, I was thinking about this and how special it was to have you walk in here.
Yeah.
And I wanted to start before we even got into everything that you've been through, and I really want to tell the story. I want you to tell the story with the questions I ask, so the audience can get a feeling of what you experienced through your eyes.
Right.
You know, but I wanted to start with a prayer, and I wanted. I don't know if you want to do it or John wants to, but I think you should do it, Kim,
Right, yeah.
since we're the hosts.
Thank you.
All right.
That's the way to start.
Heavenly Father, we love you, God. We come together right now with John, our long-lost brother that's returned. We ask, God, that you just bless this gathering, bless this meetup, bless this conversation. Let our words not be without effect. We thank you, Lord, for all the blessings and the will to keep going and the will to keep being good stewards of the blessing of a country you've given us, God. We pray that you continue to be with us and just guide us by your way. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Hallelujah.
Amen. Yeah, next thing we got to do is do a toast. But I want people to know, too, who are watching this, that us seeing each other right now is the first time.
Yeah.
We've spoken, but we haven't seen each other. And a year ago, like I said, end of July, you went in end of July, was it
July 25th.
25th, and you were here a few days earlier.
The week before.
The week before.
And I've only been out basically a couple weeks now.
Couple weeks.
So.
Yeah, and I'll never forget, and I've told this story since you've been gone, that that when you left that night, I walked you out to your car. It was an Uber.
Right.
I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
It was an Uber, and I walked you out, and I remember how I felt like a failure because I thought to myself, how can I not stop this guy from going in? Like, how come there's nothing I can do to stop him from going in? And I told people, and I've expressed this many, many times, how is it possible that 10,000 people didn't show up here to surround the building and say, you're not taking him?
Right.
You're not. Let the standoff begin right now, And then the next day, talking to you, I mean, a few days after that, a week, whatever it was, talking to you when you were in your car on the way there to report.
Yeah, you must have called me on July 25th as I was driving to the prison.
Yeah. So So I want you to explain first. You were charged with five charges.
Yeah.
You had 5 charges against you, and they offered you a deal, which was a misdemeanor.
Single misdemeanor
deal.
Yep.
And you would have done how much time?
On a single misdemeanor?
Yeah.
I mean, single misdemeanors don't go to prison.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're even putting any J6ers in prison for misdemeanors is completely unprecedented, completely absurd.
Yeah.
It's complete weaponization of government, and there's no other excuse for it. So.
And they threatened you also with a 20-year obstruction charge. That was included in the five charges.
Yeah. So it was a single misdemeanor to entice me into playing along with their program, as opposed to going to trial against 5 counts that I knew I'd be convicted on, including a 20-year felony.
Yeah.
So they gave me, as I call it, golden parachute with that single misdemeanor. But they could have given me a plea deal of sign this deal that says you agree with our lies, and we'll send you home scot-free with a $10,000 bonus. They could have given me that plea deal too, and I still would have rejected it.
Here, I'll let you pour. So,
they wanted me to sign something that says I'm guilty because the government says so.
That's where I want to go.
Yeah.
So when I met you a few years ago, I remember you came in here with Simone Gold a couple times, and I'd see you, and you're flamboyant.
Yeah.
I mean, tonight this is like toned down for you,
just,
right? But you were all. I remember I see you a lot sitting here at this table, and you were flamboyant. And,
Tony.
Yeah.
Was he Gucci goggles flamboyant?
Close. He was. Like he's breaking them out. There he goes.
You got some Gucci goggles?
He's got something going
That's
on.
exactly what they are.
There you go.
Look at that, Hollywood, man.
That's awesome.
Better than Hollywood. So he comes. So he's sitting there. I remember, and I would see him, and I would, I would say hi to him. You and I would talk, but I talked to a lot of people, hundreds and hundreds of people a week. So especially during that time, and hold on to that, John. Hold on to that for a while. And I remember that when I really took notice of you, like the same thing with Kim. I met Kim, a lot of times too. He would come in here and stop in. But when I took notice of Kim, I only took notice was when he showed me he had an ankle monitor and that he was standing up. And because to me, I like to surround myself with people of courage, men of courage, and people that stand on principle. And then when I heard you got arrested, and then when I heard that you were like, "Fuck no, I'm not taking a deal," that's when I said, "This is my guy." Right. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And that's when you and I really bonded after that.
Absolutely.
And it's interesting because.
Yes, John, real quick.
Go ahead.
How many times did anybody else support you in that besides Tony? Were there any takers that thought that you not taking a deal was like a good power move?
I think so.
People understood why I was doing it, and they generally supported the fact that I was doing it, but most of them found it almost impossible to believe that I'd actually take that step.
Yeah.
And they all universally, this is people that see the world straight.
Yeah.
But they all said, we are totally behind you and understand if you choose to take the plea.
Yeah.
It's more rational to do that under the circumstances.
So they
And
supported you, but not your choice.
they didn't not support it for the most part, although a lot of them did try to talk me out of it.
But
A lot of-
Tony,
Oh no, Tony never tried to talk.
of
me out
course,
No.
of course.
So it's interesting to me because you have these people that go to J6, right?
Right.
They're all there
A million of them.
talking a big game, yeah, at least talking a big game, saying what they stand for, right? But then they get pinched, right, and they backtrack. So are we supposed to believe people like that then or not? Like what should we believe? You know, when you speak, right? I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about them.
Right.
And that's the problem that I have. So when someone like you steps up and says, I believed it then, and even though now I'm walking into the fire, I believe it now. That's principle.
Yeah.
And that's why I love you, man, for that.
Thank you. Thank
You
you.
know, and I respect you and appreciate
Should
you.
we
And
toast principle
we got to
or
do a
what?
toast for that. Yeah, absolutely, we do.
Toast to principle.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Couldn't be better said.
John Strand, man.
Love you guys.
You
Love
too.
you too.
So
Toast.
So I remember I also spoke to you when you were in the Fed building during the trial. You would have a break. You'd break out and you would text me or I'd talk to you real quick and
During
you
the
tell
trial,
me
yeah.
you tell me I'm going in. It's
You
already they already know what they're gonna do.
Right.
It's done.
You knew from the moment you stepped in that court.
Yeah, and I want people to know that when
Before that.
I was speaking to him during that time, he's the same as he is now.
Yeah.
There was no fear in his voice, no crackling of his voice. He was like he was going to freaking Disneyland. Like it was like, I mean, I swear.
Did you see this picture I have the day I'm about to go in before I hop on a plane to get there? And I'm like, I look like I'm going to Disneyland.
Yeah.
I can't believe how happy I was.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
weird, actually. I was like,
You
really?
were fighting for your country, like a real fight.
I'm glad you said that because that's exactly what I was doing, and that's the only reason I was able to have that mindset and that spirit and that freedom.
And at that time, you're facing 32 months.
Yeah, they had sentenced me to almost 3 years, and I was going in for up to almost 3 years.
And that's what you thought you were going to do.
Yeah.
32 fucking months.
Yeah.
The judge's name was Chris Cooper.
Yeah.
That fuckhead was was appointed by Obama,
Oh, bummer.
by the mini Antichrist. Yeah, Obama.
Yes.
And so it was already stacked against you already, right? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, all the judges in D.C. are terrible.
Yeah.
They're all wildly partisan, corrupt, at this point, completely flaunting or trampling, I should say, the rule of law when it suits their purposes.
What about the jury? I read that there was only 2 government officials that were, people that worked for the government that were on your jury, and the rest were just normal people. But
Yeah, they call them normal.
well, that was my word, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, actually, my judge during jury selection, was it during jury selection or no, actually it was at sentencing. So the trial happens, and then for 6 months or so, I'm speaking publicly to say this is a sham show trial, and it was rigged, and the jury is
and Cooper
partisan.
saw all that.
He saw
He
all
was
that,
watching all of it.
and
I know.
and he was furious. So he said that he said we gave you a totally reasonable, normal jury, and he said, you've got official Washington, like of people inside the bubble, and then you've got normal Washington.
No.
And I in my book when I wrote about this, I was just like, sure, Casey, whatever. Sure, we've got bubble Washington. Like, what the hell is he talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
So the whole district is Looney Tunes. I mean, you don't have to take my word for it. Check the voting records. They voted 95+% for the Democrat against Trump in the last election cycle. So 95% when you're picking a jury pool, that is not anywhere approaching impartial.
Yeah.
It's absurd on
That's
its
I mean,
not
they're
a
just
jury,
qualified by voting for a guy with dementia. That's the litmus test.
Exactly.
95% is my litmus test.
So when you were at J6,
Yeah.
when you were there, did you feel when you were there it was an historic day? Did you feel like you were part of something?
I knew it was going to be a historic day before I even got there.
Okay.
Now, that has nothing to do with what ended up happening that day, which I had no idea was coming.
That's
I
what I want you. That's what I
could
want to
have
ask you
not have
next.
known.
Yeah.
No, but I knew it was going to be a historic day because November 3rd, 2020, when the election was stolen, was a historic
And I'm glad
day.
you're still saying that.
I have never, ever retreated or recanted from the absolute truth and fact the 2020 election was stolen. And there's more than one way to skin a cat, and there's more than one way to figure out that election was wildly screwed up. But,
So
that's your freedom of speech at fundamental levels. That's your freedom of speech, because if you can't question an election, do you really have freedom of thought or freedom of speech?
Good point.
you certainly don't have a democracy.
That's a good point.
So when you left that day after you were gone, and you were there at J6, you left. After it's over,
J6 event.
did you feel like there could be a problem? Did that ever cross your mind?
Well, that evening, we heard all kinds of reports about people saying, "Oh, something terrible happened."
Like insurrection.
No. I'm talking about when I say something bad happened. I'm talking about like they could have retribution against you.
Right. No, I knew what you meant.
Okay, got it.
I didn't. Not like what happened.
Yeah.
I thought maybe someone might call us to question us about what happened based
Drag your name through the mud.
I wasn't really sure. I mean, that evening we started hearing reports about riot, attack on the Capitol, and all these other ridiculous phrases. But because we were there, and so we knew it wasn't an attack on the Capitol, we knew it wasn't an insurrection.
Yeah.
We knew exactly what it was. It was a protest that everyone had been planning for weeks to come to. We'd spent all morning being there. And then it got crazy and confusing, and the doors opened and people went inside, and then they went outside. And, we weren't sure exactly why that all happened the way that it did, but we did not have any sense that 12 days later, I would be assaulted by an FBI SWAT team raid, akin to a drug cartel takedown, and that the rest of my life till this day would have been demolished.
You were tested.
That's what I wanted to ask you. Where were you when you were arrested? What were you doing at that moment?
I was working.
Where?
It was Martin Luther King Day, which I think is no small irony. But despite
which should be the week we celebrate George Washington. And anyway, go ahead.
So Martin Luther King Day.
George Washington's birthday.
Exactly.
It's a Monday, and because I work for a living, I was working, unlike the federal employees. So I was on a conference call in the home office where I worked in Los Angeles at the time, which is where I'm from, and just out of nowhere, blood-curdling screams, pounding on the door, and
Who was screaming?
the FBI.
Okay.
Although I couldn't see them, so I thought it was a prank or criminals.
When you say screaming, is it because there were female agents?
No. These were men
These were men. Okay.
yelling so loud that my head was rattling through the wall.
Okay.
Yelling like, I've never heard yelling that loud in my entire life.
Okay.
And then the door was beat to pieces with a battering ram, and agents rushed in with rifles and essentially threw us on the floor.
But at that point, you already knew why, or did you not?
I didn't.
Did you see it coming? Like at that point?
No, I didn't see it coming, and I didn't know why.
Because there were already arrests and stuff like that. Did you? No, you didn't know why.
No, I didn't.
Wow. And when you asked them, like, what's this about? They answered.
They answered nothing.
Okay, got it.
So,
Tony,
in the back of my mind,
Yeah.
I couldn't think of what else it might have been related to.
Sure, yeah.
Other than that, but I still did not know that was
Sure,
coming.
yeah. It's
A
so
million
insane.
people.
It's
A
It's so
million people.
it's so insane.
A million people, he'd be thinking, why me? Right? If there's a million people.
But in a lot of ways, that's an honor that after out of a million people, they choose him.
Mostly, I was thinking it's been 12 days and no one called me.
Yeah.
And then I found out at trial they'd been surveilling me for an entire week. Like
Did you ever notice?
Taking photos from the
Did you
bushes.
notice anything strange?
No, of
Never.
course not.
Yeah, because you were innocent.
Yeah.
You didn't do anything fucking wrong.
Yeah.
That's why.
I wasn't looking over my shoulder.
You weren't looking over your shoulder.
So you found that out at trial, not discovery?
I found it out at trial. I don't remember being aware of that until I got to trial. Discovery is probably when they handed it to my lawyer. But
Do you feel like anything is withheld from you by your lawyer or the government?
I had a good lawyer, and I trusted him. And he was a criminal defense attorney from Washington, D.C., who was a Democrat.
How much did you pay him, if I may ask?
Yeah,
You don't have to answer.
I won't discuss that.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Not necessary.
So like I was saying before you walked up, I don't want this to be about us. The way we do our thing here, we don't talk about being victims ever. Ever since we fought the lockdowns and shit with stuff we've been through here, we say we put them through it. They don't put us through it, right?
Yeah.
So, and I look at you the same exact way. I don't want to talk about what you've been through, how you suffered, but I do want people to understand the experience, like through your eyes. So what I wanted to ask you is, when you, like, after you were here, you had to report, you handled it like a fucking man. I remember somebody told me, somebody came in here, he's heavily involved in aerospace, and he's an historian of aeronautics and warplanes and dogfights and all that stuff. he told me a story how there was a guy once that was flying in a combat mission. I don't know if it's World War II or Vietnam, whatever it was, but they're fighting. The planes are in the air, they're fighting. One of the guys gets shot up, in his plane. He's on flames, and he's screaming in the plane, screaming, bitching, moaning, screaming, and they hear over the radio the captain, whoever's in charge, say, "Shut the fuck up and die like a man, like hand like a fucking man."
Right.
So, and that's easy for me to say. I'm
Right,
not
it's
on
intense.
fire,
That's
but the point, you're right. But the point is that
A standard.
you handled yourself with such class and grace
Thank you.
and manliness. I mean, I'll never forget it.
Thank you.
And so I wanted to know, after you left here, the night before, you're going to report to prison July 25th.
Yep.
24th, are you at home with your family, or
Yep.
okay? So do you have your own room?
Yeah, I had my own.
Okay, so you have is that where you grew up, in that house?
No, I actually live in Florida now instead of.
Yeah. Yeah. I was in Naples. Okay, so
yeah,
you didn't grow up in
you
that.
had
Okay,
moved to
you're in
Florida.
Naples now. Yeah, you're in Naples.
Yeah.
So you're at your family's house, and who's there in the house?
It's actually just me and my colleague at the time was at the house.
Okay, but is your family close by?
No,
They're in L.A.
no, my parents and siblings, my family's a little bit all over, but my parents live in Colorado,
Okay.
so they were not physically close by.
Okay, so
I visited with
I'm
them
sure you're making a lot
before
of
I
phone
went in.
calls at night.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. Okay. So you go to bed. All right. It's probably pretty late. Probably hard for you to fall asleep.
It wasn't hard for me to fall asleep.
Awesome.
You're
So
ready.
I love that. Waiting for that. So you go to sleep. Is it as you're going to sleep? I mean, what are you thinking about? What's going through your mind?
Gosh, the night before, I was just like any other day. If I was going to work the next day traveling, I was on a mission. So
Yeah.
I understood this to be I'm going on deployment as a hostage.
Absolutely. We talked
this-
about that.
Yeah, for the sake of my country. So I
Sake
was
of your
on
country.
deployment. But I travel all the time. I work all the time. I put my life and my reputation on the line all the time. I've been doing it for 4 straight years since the COVID scam.
Yep.
But prior to
yep.
that, I've been working here in Hollywood as an actor and as a model and doing the things that I believed in and that I enjoyed, but that weren't controversial necessarily. But for the last 4 years,
Mhm.
and there was a really important moment that I describe in my book about that shift where I felt God called me to start making decisions and taking actions that were controversial and risky. I've never looked back since then because I've just known that this is what God has called me to do. This is what is necessary at this time. It's my duty as an American citizen, and I take that seriously.
Yep.
So July 24th, before I report to prison the next day, was just another day at work
Yeah.
in service of this country. That's how I think about it.
Yep,
That's
yep.
how I took it. And I slept great. And that was the last great night of sleep I had for 366 days until I got out of the prison system.
Okay, so we'll get there next. That's amazing. That's exactly what I was hoping to hear. And again, people need to understand that we haven't had this discussion yet. This is the first time. Like we've said hello. In fact,
This is not scripted.
it's not scripted. In fact, when
Never is with Robert
when he got out of prison, you were supposed to get out a few days later, I think, or a day later, and I get a call from Simone Gold on her phone, and I said, "Simone," and I hear your voice. I'm like, "Who is this? Is this John?" Oh my God! I mean, it made me emotional. Like every time I talk to you once, as you know,
Yeah.
in the prison they slid me through, and you and I had a conversation, which was pretty cool.
It was amazing.
And just to hear your voice that day too, it's emotional for me because when I'm connected to a guy who's like a brother in arms, and I know what they're feeling because I understand what the sacrifice is.
Yeah.
I mean, to the level that you sacrificed. I mean, going into prison the way you did is different, of course, but we're all unified in that way.
Yeah.
And we're connected in that way. And Kim, as you know, he's going through it
He's
still,
going next.
and we'll get there. But yeah,
But
as you know,
your win, John. A win for any of us is a win for all of us.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
And you come out through the end on the other side stronger, and you've got so much potential. How are you going to start hitting back at the system for what it did to you?
Let's get there at the end. Let's get there at the end.
Yeah,
So good.
I mean,
I'm anxious to hear.
I've got all
That's a
kinds
great
of
question,
ideas.
though.
I've got all kinds of plans, but you said that a win for me is a win for all of us, right?
Absolutely, it is.
And Tony, you, even before I got to this point, you have been taking on risk and you have been exercising what I like to call uncomfortable courage for years now. And that has been an inspiration to me and a lot of other people. It's been kind of a gold standard on the Golden Coast here in California. It's a banner that you're raising, and that allows other people to realize I can grasp that and pull that forward. So
Appreciate that.
yeah, I mean, all of
humbling.
us can do different things to respond to the attacks that we're under. I think it's just critical to understand that we're at war right now.
You're a
This is
soldier.
war.
Absolutely.
You were a soldier in this
Exactly.
battle, and I say this in battles in the past, they send soldiers off to war overseas. But in this battle, we're on the front lines, guys like us.
Front lines
We're
are
on,
right in our
have been on the front
backyard.
lines, and we're blessed to be on the front lines. Are you
Yeah.
kidding? Listen, if you live a life that has no purpose, I mean, think about it. You can have all the money in the world. There's studies that are out right now that say if you don't have purpose
Yeah.
and
What's
you
the
don't have
point?
growth
And risk.
and risk, and especially that your
And pain.
your cognitive health will decline fast
Yeah.
as you get older. So you're in the car, you're driving to report now.
Yeah.
Are you by yourself?
No, I had a whole team with me.
Who's the team?
I had Dr. Gold, our security director, our marketing director. I had a team with me.
Okay.
So.
And tell the audience
Beautiful.
who Dr. Gold is.
Dr. Simone Gold is a hero in this nation. She is an inspiration to millions. She is someone that put her own life and career on the line to save a life in the midst of the COVID crisis, the pandemic crisis, to be specific. But she's an absolute hero and an incredible doctor and lawyer that has, she's put it all on the line, and she's taken more metaphorical bullets than really anyone I know other than President Trump himself. So she's a living legend in my book and in many people's estimation. And I've had the pleasure of working alongside of her very closely for 4 years. So I work as the creative director for America's Frontline Doctors. That's a nonprofit that she started as a response to all of the lies of the government during the pandemic nonsense. And it's just increased from there, as you've seen everything increase. So that's who Dr. Gold is to the world, and she's
Thanks
a
for doing
very,
that.
very special person in my life personally.
She's
as
a
well.
good friend. Yeah.
Awesome.
So what are you guys talking about? You're almost there. Like, what's going on in the car?
Man, I mean, so Simone is a very dear friend of mine.
I
So
know.
she's struggling with the emotions of losing someone that's very close to her. We didn't talk a lot. It was a pretty quiet ride. It was somber. I think I was probably in the best mood of anyone.
Yeah.
The one facing the worst.
But I'm also aware of the reality in those last hours, as I'm going to be leaving. My dearest friend, my team, my family's in another place, but I saw them right before I went in, so I know I'm leaving them, and I don't know when I'm going to see any of these people for maybe almost 3 years. And I had no idea what they were about to put me through once I got there. I had no idea what was coming. So she asked me before I got out of the car, like, are you ready? Like, are you sure you're ready for this?
Yep.
And people have been asking me that for 2 years running, because this is like a slow motion freight train in reverse coming at me. And every time I get asked the question, are you ready? Are you sure? I understand why the question is asked, but the answer is consistent. It's never wavered. Yes, I know exactly what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and that this is what must be done. And I'm sure, and I am okay. And I said, God's in control.
Yeah.
So of course I'm okay, because I know who
So
runs
do
this
you
program.
walk in alone?
Yeah, you had to walk.
So
in
you
alone.
walk in alone. You're processed, right?
Yep.
Do you still remember the first person that you saw when you walked in?
Yeah,
Who was?
just a big prison guard.
How did he treat you?
The first guy was polite enough.
Okay.
It was just like, get on with the program.
And
Strip
were you?
down,
Was there a
through.
moment that it was very surreal to you? Like, this is fucking happening right now. Or as a warrior, were you kind of excited? Like, this is the next chapter. This is part of the deal. Like what's going through your head at that point?
It became very real very fast.
Yeah.
In the sense that this is not anything like normal life, and this is not going to be comfortable or enjoyable.
Sure.
So I guess I was kind of stricken by the emptiness of the environment. I literally felt like it was spiritually dead.
Yeah.
Like physically, if you walk in a room with kind of nothing in it and
Yep.
it's muffled and like
Yep.
the sound doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
Spiritually, it felt like that. Like
Yeah.
it was a black hole.
Yeah.
So that was,
Were there other?
I wouldn't say surreal, but it was kind of bizarre.
And I want people to hear this because I want them to understand the sacrifice. That's why I'm doing
Yeah.
this. You understand?
Were there other January 6th people there in that prison with you?
I probably figured out a few days or a week in that there was one or two others. I don't know if I got there first. There weren't very many. I had a few conversations with a couple of them, but it quickly became obvious that they were trying to. The staff was hyper focused on observing that.
So you get to your cell.
Yeah.
You walk into your cell. Like, what do you see?
Man, so before you even get there, you do some processing that takes a while and it's kind of obnoxious. And I was actually asking for some help to make sure I understood what the rules and policies were.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I got no answers. Everyone was just talk to the other person. Eventually some guard led me through the campus and to another building. And then eventually I figured out, oh, your cell's up this way. And so I walk into this cell and there's another guy in it. He is a short little Hispanic man, hardly speaks any English, a little bit. And I could immediately tell that
He's your roommate.
Yeah.
He's your cellmate.
He's I call him a roommate because I avoid the prison verbiage.
I like it. I like it.
And I was only a roommate with him for a few weeks, but I could instantly tell he was a decent person that wasn't trying to harm anybody. And he was kind of curious, who is this person? Are they going to be reasonable towards me? And he instantly could tell I was a decent person.
Yeah.
And he relaxed and he helped me get situated.
I want to ask you a question. So when you're talking with other J6ers and you say the staff was watching, were they watching like these guys are going to get together and insurrect in the prison? Or what are they thinking? What do you think they were thinking?
No, most of the staff weren't thinking that. Most of them weren't watching me as much as they're all just watching because that's their job, or when they're doing their job, they're watching. But I was pulled aside by basically special agents inside of the prison system to say, "Hey, we know you're a J6er. We know who you are. We're watching you. You should know that we're watching you."
And
I mean, I actually had a frank conversation with the guy the first time that happened, and I told him, "Hey, look," because he said, we've had other J6ers in the past that have caused us problems.
okay,
And they come in with this attitude like, I'm a constitutional warrior, so you can't touch me because I know what my rights are.
Yeah.
And the prison staff's basically like, yeah, this is prison. You don't have any rights.
no more rights.
Yeah. So I told him, I said, look, my beef is not with you. My issue is with the DOJ.
Yeah.
So to me, the prison system is just doing what their boss tells them to do. So as long as you follow your rules, and as long as you communicate what your rules are to me, I'm not here trying to break your rules. I mean, I have constitutional rights still, and I'd like to find out how I can exercise them. But I want to be your easiest customer, so just talk to me and we'll work this out. That was what I communicated to the prison staff. But
did
that's
they-
that's not exactly what happened.
Did they not want you to continue talking to those guys? Was that like what
They didn't want me talking to anybody.
anybody?
Yeah.
That's weird.
They literally told me, if you know what's good for you, you'll go sit in a corner, shut up, and stay there until your time's up.
Huh.
That's what they told me.
Do they fucking know who they're talking to?
Apparently not.
Obviously not.
You drove a long way. You hungry?
I'm fine, but whatever.
Yeah, let's bring something out for him. It's funny. I talked about him not being flamboyant tonight. I looked down. He's got leopard shoes.
Beautiful.
Fucking leopard shoes. So
We have a special meal for you though too.
I love
So
it.
it's
Yeah.
like, look what the cheetah dragged in, right?
So there you go.
Good.
So when you're in there, we know everybody knows about your. I mean, it's a pretty well known story. This is carpaccio. I'm sure you've had carpaccio
Of
before.
Put that right there. Awesome. Thank you, John.
I like carpaccio.
Don't be shy. Eat.
Yeah.
Eat, eat.
Thank you.
And John is half Italian.
Yeah.
On your
Mom's side.
mom's side. And your mom's last name? Oh, you don't have to say if you don't want to.
Cinque Grana.
Ah, it's beautiful. Man.
Beautiful thing.
And did she cook?
Oh, like you can't believe.
Did you miss it?
I do every day.
Fuck. I
Every
bet,
day
man.
of my life I miss it.
Absolutely, man.
Who wants bread?
Just caught up with mom and dad and the fam, and they made a whole bunch of amazing Italian food.
Yeah. I can imagine. I want to get there too. So when you're in there, you go into the hole. They put you in solitary confinement. Was there ever a moment?
Well, why did you get solitary confinement?
So when I had this this meeting,
Take care of him.
thank you, with
Yeah.
with the special agent that said, if you know what's good for you, you shut up in the corner and stay
Yeah.
there until your 3 years is up. I told him, because I'm an honest person, and I'm not going to be deterred from what my mission is.
Yeah.
Yep.
I said, okay, I understand that you have a job to do,
Yeah.
and I respect that, and I have a job to do, and so I need to understand what the parameters are in which I can do my job. I'm a journalist. I'm a civil rights advocate, and I'm currently fighting a corrupt DOJ as a political prisoner and appealing corrupt charges. So I have an appeal that's pending, and I have a continuing mission to communicate to the American public about the fight that I'm in and the rights that I am advocating for. So let me know how I can do that in a way that's kosher with your system. So he indicated to me, or intimated to me with his responses, that he understood where I was coming from and respected that, and that we would find some way for me to do that. I mean, he said, "You're taking a risk by continuing to speak and be public, but I understand what you're trying to do, so we'll try to work something out." And I said, that's fine. Let's just stay in communication. I specifically asked, what are the rules related to communications, as in like calling out of the prison? They told me, submit your contacts for approval. So I did that and made a legal call on the prison phone to my approved contacts. However, one of those contacts ended up being a phone call with a journalist, which a lot of people heard that conversation because he put it on the air.
Yeah.
The prison didn't like that.
Was there Grant?
So
Yeah, Grant Stimpson.
so describe solitary confinement in a federal prison in Miami. Right? Is that Miami at that point?
That was in Miami.
Okay, go ahead.
So this is everyone's most popular
We should
question.
eat
Thank
too.
you.
Go ahead.
Everyone wants to know, what is it actually like to be in prison? And particularly, they want to know, what is it like to be in solitary confinement? It is very difficult to explain this in words, especially in a short setting. It's extremely inhumane. So everything about you that's human is restricted. And so the closest analogy I'd use is kind of like suffocation.
Yeah.
It's this feeling like you can't breathe and you start to panic, but you never actually pass out, but you just feel like maybe if you were sitting on the couch and somebody like jumped on top of you,
Yeah.
and it's like you can't actually quite draw in a breath, and after about 30 seconds you start panicking.
Is it because you're in a small room?
Yeah.
It's because you're in a small room. It's
Alone.
because you can't see or hear or reach
No
anyone.
windows.
There's a 6-inch plate glass out the front door,
Got
but
it.
there's a hallway in front. You can't see anything out that window.
Yeah.
So it's almost
How
like
big
you
is
don't
the
have
room. Is it?
It's roughly 10 by 15.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all concrete.
Yeah.
It-
Toilet and a bed.
yeah.
That's it.
Imagine being in a submarine and you got locked into a closet in a submarine, and you're like,
Can't get
you
out.
realize the door doesn't open from the inside.
And you were in there for how long?
And 4 months.
Okay, so when you're in there for 4 months, did you ever? And it's fine. I mean, you're a fucking man, right? You're a man like all of us. We believe like everybody else.
Yeah.
Was there ever a moment where you doubted yourself and said, "Did I do the right thing? Did I?"
No.
Fucking
There was never a moment.
Awesome.
love that.
Absolutely not. No, I actually wrote to Simone in a letter, which was difficult because I actually took pens away. I had to hide a pen so I could write a letter. They were stealing the pens from the inmates. And they blocked my mail, most of it, which is completely illegal. They blocked my
Yeah, they blocked my
attorneys.
mail.
Yeah, they blocked your mail. They blocked me from reaching my attorneys.
They blocked my email too.
Anyone in this country should have the understanding that you're not allowed to block anyone.
Yeah.
You can't block Hannibal Lecter from calling his attorney.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no excuse. There's no situation where you can block somebody from an attorney, and they did it for months actually, which is insane. So Dr. Gould's one of many attorneys working on my case, but I snuck a letter out to her, just so she would know I was alive. But what I said in that letter was, I said, I hate everything, but I regret nothing.
Yeah.
I said I hate everything just in the sense that what I was experiencing at that time was so horrible that there was nothing you could do but hate it.
Yeah.
It wasn't even like I could choose to not hate it. Like I just physically hated it.
Did you ever wonder if you could make it? Did you ask yourself, can I do this? Can I make it through?
I knew I could.
You
I
knew
I
you
could.
but whatever, ever a little, just a
but you
little
never
tinge
knew-
of doubt
I don't know, man.
or fear?
No, not fear, but like I was getting more hysterical.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a weird thing when you reach a certain point, a certain amount of time of isolation where you're cut off and you don't know when it's going to end. You don't really understand why they're doing
You never
what they're
knew
doing.
how long that.
Had no idea how long, had no idea if any rules were being, I mean, they weren't following any rules, and that was sort of evident, but ostensibly I'm still in the United States of America. So you just don't really know what you don't know.
And I know you're writing a lot, which is good at that time. You're
not
writing.
in solitary, but
Not in solitary. Yeah.
afterwards.
Before and afterwards, or afterwards only?
Afterwards.
Afterwards only.
Yeah.
Have some of that, please.
Thank you.
There you go. Kim?
So, John, you grew quite an extensive beard. And
Extensive
was
beard,
I
you
saw
said?
pictures.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he did have a beard.
I saw
That
pictures.
looked good
of
on
it.
you, man.
So I'm
It
curious.
was a new look.
He had a beard for a while, too.
I'm
Thank you.
curious if I had a beard when you went away.
That's right.
So I thought it'd be funny if you had the beard this time, but I understand why you wanted it.
I'll tell you the story. So, I'm a Christian, which is the most important thing in my life, is my faith. And not my faith in like, oh, this is this fairy tale that I've decided will keep me comfortable at night.
Yeah.
No, my faith is what allowed me to walk into that prison without any fear. My faith is what allowed me to make the decision that even though I could have taken a single misdemeanor and no one would have faulted me for it.
Yeah.
The whole nation of patriots would have said, we understand, we love you, you're doing the best that you can. But my faith is what allowed me to say, no, this is what needs to be done because this is what real men do when the chips are down. So that's the faith that allows me to make those decisions and take those risks and take those bullets and suffer that pain. So that faith inspired me with something in the Bible called a Nazarite vow, which is a really old ritual designed to just impress upon somebody how sacred and necessary and beautiful it is when you do something
Make
for a
sacrifice.
sacred purpose, a sacrifice for a really special or a specific period of time. And so the Nazarite vow, you essentially do not touch the hair on your head or beard for whatever the time is that you're committed to, the purpose. So I made a vow that I would not cut my hair or beard for as long as I was in the prison system until I was vindicated and set free. And I always believed that I would be vindicated legally as well as morally. I have always known I was innocent before God, but I have also known I was innocent per American law, that the charges against me were illegitimate, fraudulent, the law was misapplied, and that I would beat it. So on June 28th of this year, I was vindicated at the United States Supreme Court.
I want to talk about that next.
Which is incredible.
First, though, when you were inside, who did you think about the most? Who was on your mind the most?
You, Tony.
Who was on your mind the most?
Besides Tony.
No, Simone was on my
Simone.
mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love her dearly.
Yeah.
That's a
No, I know.
sacrifice.
We were in touch a lot.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that. We were always talking about ways to get you out of solitary. We had a lot of plans. We had big plans for you, kid. We had big plans for you. Who inside influenced you? Who on the inside did you meet influence you, or who do you think you influenced when you were inside?
I know for sure I was blessed to have the opportunity to influence a number of people.
What type of people?
Inmates.
Okay, yeah, but
But staff members too. I had some interesting conversations with staff members. Most of the staff, to be frank, is terrible.
Yeah.
Mostly terrible in the sense that they're disinterested, they're crass, they're just incompetent.
and this is three different correctional institutions. Miami. Then
it was half in Miami, half in Louisiana, and I was transferred for a week in Oklahoma, which is a transfer center. But I had some interesting conversations with a few staff members, and I had many interesting conversations with many different inmates.
Yeah.
So I definitely had some influence, both in terms of enlightening people about the state of affairs from a political and cultural standpoint. I certainly had an opportunity to enlighten some people from a biblical and spiritual standpoint. My roommates in the second half in Louisiana were very kind to me, and I had some really great heart-to-hearts with them. There were some doctors that were inmates who were clearly absolutely innocent because our system is beyond corrupt, and it's not just related to J6. The DOJ is an unbelievable, just dumpster fire. So there were doctors. I work for America's Frontline Doctors, so that's a demographic that I'm in tune with and I communicate with a lot. So I had some, moments of influence there. You asked if people had influence on me.
Yes. Did you make a best friend? Is this one guy that you when you left, you said, I'll remember you. I'll be thinking about you. I'll be praying for you.
So I'm wearing a bracelet, if you can see it.
Yep.
And there's a friendship bracelet that my Christian brother, John Robert, made for me while I was in prison.
That's awesome.
And he's
John
old,
Robert.
John Robert. He's older than me. He's been in the system for a long time, but he came to Christ while he was in prison, and he turned his life around, and I respect him a lot. And he said, I want to make my first bracelet for you, because he had come to the facility after me, so he was new there. And he said, I'm going to make my first bracelet for you, and then you'll rep it for me, and everyone will want one. He said, what do you want? And I said, I want the red pill and the blue pill. Because he knew I was writing a book.
That's good.
Yeah.
And the central premise, the book is called Patriot Plea,
Yeah, I
by
want
the
to ask
way.
you about that.
So people can pre-order that.
Say it again.
Patriot Plea.
Got it.
Because I refused the plea deal.
Which institution did you meet him? Was he at,
I like
At
that.
Louisiana.
In Louisiana.
Louisiana. So I said,
Tell us about him more. Go ahead.
he's a patriot. I mean, he understands the blessing it is to live in this country.
Yeah.
That is founded on the rule of law, and that rule of law being grounded in biblical principles. And he understands how precious that is, even though the system hasn't necessarily treated him fairly either. And he acknowledged that he actually made legitimate criminal mistakes in his in his life. But I have lots more to tell you later about
Sure.
how ridiculous and ineffective and unethical the prison system is, and how it.
Any names you want to call out?
Well, Merrick Garland.
No, well, anybody. Yeah, I know, but anybody that you had direct contact with inside.
Oh,
In terms of, like, if you could get him on the, if you can get him in like an alleyway.
no, forget an alleyway. I want him in a courtroom.
Yeah, but you want some street justice too.
No, I want real justice. I want real, because that's what I'm saying. This country was founded on the rule of law. And that's an incredible blessing if you really understand what it means and how it can actually preserve freedom for people. But we
sometimes they deserve a good beating too.
The bad guys are not being held to account at all. So they're making a mockery of justice. But to your question, there are two people.
John Robert.
No, John Robert is just a
He's gonna go with the bad guys.
great guy,
and he made me this red, white, and blue bracelet.
And you're going to reconnect with him probably when he gets out,
yeah,
right?
man, yeah.
God willing.
That's your guy.
When I told him when he made this for me, I said, "This will not leave my wrist
That's awesome.
until every J6 hostage is set free."
Okay.
Because
Was he J6 also?
no, John Robert
Okay.
was not. He was just a Christian brother that
They made mistakes.
made mistakes, but he has turned his life around. He's taken ownership of his own,
Love that.
responsibility for his own actions. So he embodies the American spirit, even from where he is.
And you wouldn't
at
be
a certain
saying that
time.
if you didn't get a sense of his soul.
That's
Like,
right.
You got a sense. You felt it.
That's right.
You felt it, and you feel like you connect with him probably more than anyone else during your time.
Well, I mean, there were a handful, but he
Yeah.
was one that was really meaningful to me.
Yeah.
John Robert.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice.
Do you feel like the staff had a directive from higher up that they had to make it harder on you
Yes.
because of J6?
Of course,
Yes.
of course.
Yeah, without question.
Well, I also wonder too.
And
The enemy,
Not necessarily the lower level staff, but the
Well,
upper. Yeah.
Yeah.
the scumbag vermin enemy too. They like to portray you as, oh, he's a model, underwear model, and Hollywood
Well,
guy,
yeah.
right, and everything else. So did that probably made its way into the prison?
It did.
Did that hurt you?
Oh no. So when I got to the second half to Louisiana, I show up to the new cell that I'm assigned to, and the guys are waiting there for me. Like, "Are you John Strand?"
They knew who you were.
I was like, "Oh my God!" I went from being famous on Instagram to being famous in prison.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if
Awesome.
that's good or bad, but
Sure.
I was glad that they were like positive about it. I was like, "Yeah, I'm John Strand." They're like, the second question they asked was, "Who do you run with?" Now I had gotten this the first time, so when I got to Miami, first time I'd ever been in prison before, obviously.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
Yeah. So when I first got to
You've
prison,
never been to jail, right?
never been to jail. I mean, until the FBI arrested me in 2021, right after J6 happened,
Yeah,
and they threw me in prison and disappeared me for 4 days without a phone call. But other than that, this was my first prison experience.
Sure.
And
that was Los Angeles, right?
that was Los Angeles, and they threw me in solitary, and I didn't even interact with the general population.
Yeah.
But in Miami, I got into the prison, I get into a normal cell in general population, and I meet other inmates. And so the group all comes up to me. That's my group, which is all racially segregated by skin color, because that's how prison works. So these Caucasian guys all come up to me. Some of them were Italian actually, and so that was fun. But their first question,
Italian guys?
a couple of them,
Awesome guys, right?
good guys,
Great guys,
always good guys, obviously. But the first or second question, usually the first question is like, which prison did you come from? And for me, it's like, no, guys, I've never been to prison. I came from home.
Yeah.
But the second question is, who do you run with?
Who do you run
Like,
with?
who's your gang?
Well, I had no idea. I just looked at them stupid. Like, who do I run with? What
I
does
run
that
with
even-
Simone. I run with Tony.
That's
I
what
run
I
with a couple-
said. I
couple of
well, I
guys.
didn't say anything because I was just like, huh?
What's
They're
that?
like, no, gang. And I was like, oh. So then I'm like, how do I respond to this question?
Yeah,
And I was like, I run with Trump.
that's good.
And they loved that. They
That's
just
awesome.
laughed. So then when I got to Louisiana and the guys knew I was coming, they
Yeah,
looked
yeah.
me up and they're like, oh, this famous J6er's coming in. Are you John Strand? I'm like, yeah. Who do you run with? I'm like, I run with Trump. And they just loved it.
They love that.
Because I knew how to answer the question.
Yeah.
Oh, that
That's
worked,
awesome.
huh?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, that's so
It was
good.
great. So I had great support in there from the inmates. I sang the national anthem every night at 9 p.m.
Oh, beautiful.
Alone, or did people join you?
A few would join me, but really it was just me. And
Yeah.
they thought it was weird at first, and then they thought it was cool and they clapped. But it was just a thing. I just made it a thing. And I did it before I went into the prison system. When I went to D.C. for the trial, I had been told that they had a J6 vigil every night since J6 happened, essentially, or since they first started arresting people. And without fail, whether it's 10 people or 100 or more, there's somebody there outside of the DC Gulag every night for like almost 4 years running now. Every night there are people out there from 8 to 9 p.m. They do a roll call of every J6 hostage that's in prison.
That's awesome.
They pray for them, and then at 9 they sing the anthem, and they sing it with the guys in the DC Gulag. So
Wow.
it's at some
So they
point
can hear.
that you
inside,
can.
they
I
hear.
went and I could hear them.
Yeah.
Because there were several hundred guys in the DC Gulag for a period of time, and they sing it every night as loud as they can, and they do it over the phone. It's incredible. Actually, President Trump got a recording of it and then released a musical track.
We'll get to Trump soon, but
It's amazing.
I wanted to ask you. So when you hear about the Fisher decision, right?
Yeah.
You have hope now.
I've
right,
always
you
had
hope.
hope.
Okay,
I've always had hope.
but when you heard it came down, you're like,
that's
man,
when
this
I knew
might
I
happen.
won. No,
This
I
might
knew I
happen.
won. I knew
Okay.
I won.
So if that didn't happen, did you have the stomach at that point for the 32 months?
Absolutely.
You were ready. You're like, I've made it throughout this very, very difficult time.
Yeah.
Right? I did solitary.
Yeah.
It's easy from here.
I wouldn't say it's easy from here.
Easier.
Every day was terrible.
Yeah. I
Every
understand.
day was
I
terrible.
understand.
I have to stress that point because people need to understand just how terrible.
But you were feeling emboldened. I mean, you were
The
feeling
system is.
more strength each day, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you
Absolutely.
were feeling strong. Because every time I would talk to Simone, she would say, "He's sounding better and better and better and better."
Yeah.
And when you were putting on that brave face for her, whether it was real or not, it really encouraged her, and
I'm
it
glad
gave
to
her
hear that.
peace.
I'm glad to hear that.
It gave her peace. Otherwise, she was worried sick every night, and it's
Yeah.
not good for her, right?
No,
so
it's
even if
not.
you were doing it for her, not for yourself, that's important, I think.
Absolutely.
Do the people in Louisiana, the prison staff and whoever, were they watching you, or was there? Did you ever fear that you're going to get solitary in that institution from the things you were doing?
No, not too much. So someone pulled me aside. I told you that when I first got to Miami, they pulled me aside, kind
Yeah.
of gave me this whole thing. And then after the Grant Stinchfield interview, I got interrogated,
Yeah.
like harshly, and then solitary and all that craziness.
Can you help him with this?
Solitary was it got so
We need some extra
heated.
plates.
People found out
Extra plates.
publicly. I want to acknowledge, because there's very few of them, right? The brave Congress people that actually do the right thing. So Congressman Matt Gaetz, Clay Higgins, Paul Gosar, Marjorie Taylor Greene, them specifically really went to the mat for me. And Congressman Matt Gaetz held a hearing, pulled in the director of the BOP and grilled her about me.
I remember that.
I
Yeah.
heard a little bit about that.
So that temperature got high enough that they had to transfer me.
Oh,
So this
thank
is
you.
wild boar. Have you had wild boar?
I love wild boar.
Wild boar with
Oh my God.
homemade pappardelle pasta.
That's one of my favorites.
We made it a
It's
while
amazing.
ago, but we heated it
No,
up
it
and
looks
because
great.
we didn't know what time we were going to see
It
each
looks
other.
great.
John, help yourself. You know how much you want.
Here,
Yeah, let's
Thank
eat,
you.
man. We got to eat a little bit.
I'll put this in.
You can get him.
Okay.
Make sure he gets a lot of that board.
Oh, yeah.
When I went to Louisiana,
Yeah.
another guy pulled me aside. And he basically said, look,
Thanks.
I don't know what happened back there in Miami, but we don't want any of that trouble.
Oh, you're talking about staff member.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he said,
Oh,
Just-
that's good, man.
don't be doing no podcasts. Like from inside the prison.
That's funny.
He was like,
How about interviews?
right?
No interviews, right?
He didn't want me to do any public media.
So that was an unwritten rule, right?
Exactly.
Is there any pasta?
When
Oh, the pasta.
I describe this story in the book,
Thank you.
I tell them that, they're telling me that the BOP is the only sheriff in town, so I still don't really have any rights.
Yeah.
But they're also kind of telling me, look, we don't find political persecution listed in the BOP policy manual either, so we're not looking for extracurricular activity here in this facility. So I understood that if I didn't do public media interviews, that they were going to do their best to try to leave me alone.
But they let you communicate, though. You were able to send letters and talk on the phone to your attorney. And
I mean, it took a while. That was kind of ridiculous too. But eventually, they let me at least have, quote unquote, normal phone calls to family and my attorneys.
Hey, when you see Prager tomorrow, ask him if he's got any pasta, like meatballs for you.
Right, exactly.
I know you're seeing him tomorrow. Right? So when you when you get the word and you're getting out, like what was that feeling like?
Dude, I was so pumped.
Tell me what that was going through your mind.
I was very confident that we were going to win at the Supreme Court, but you don't know for sure.
Now,
Simone was too, by the way.
You were in Oklahoma at the time when you got out?
Louisiana.
Okay, so when did you spend time in Oklahoma?
Just for a week in between. Yeah.
Okay, so Florida, Oklahoma, and then Louisiana.
Right.
Okay.
So I was confident. But in solitary, there's not much to do.
Yeah.
Right. So I did a lot of praying. I mean, a lot.
Okay.
And I really came closer to God through that experience. And something that I felt God speaking to me in that period was to really lean into what God is speaking to us in our lives and what he's calling to us above our own expectations or plans for things.
Yeah.
Not that we can't have plans. I mean, that's fine. But it was just a bit of a focus and a readjustment of my mental and spiritual priorities. So I had this mindset while I was in Louisiana awaiting the Supreme Court decision that I was going to just continue to pray every day. God, I believe this is the right thing and what you would want, that we would get this victory. And I know I want it, but I'm going to submit to you in whatever your will, in whatever your outcome is. And I know that no matter what the Supreme Court decision is, that you're bigger than that, you're in control. And if I continue to just do what I know is the right thing in front of me, that you will honor that.
Wow.
So I had as much confidence as I could that we would win at the Supreme Court, but you still don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just had to trust. That's the faith part. That's the trust part, and that's where your strength is really increased.
Well, Simone was ahead of it because she was explaining it to me before I saw it anywhere. Like she was always on top of it, and she kept believing that this was your chance. And I remember even you were the first person to text me early in the morning that he was released because of it.
Yeah.
And I about fainted when I heard. I mean, it was think about it being 2 weeks early. And then do they come and get you and say, John, you're out of here? Like, how does that happen?
I mean, the prison staff just basically calls you. It was probably 3 or 4 days before I was actually going to go because I have to handle some paperwork.
Yeah.
But I knew 2 weeks before I was leaving that I would be leaving on the 24th.
Mm.
Real quick, though, something very important.
Go ahead.
Tony, you always get your back, right?
Always got my
You
back.
got a little sauce right here.
Thanks, man.
Right there on your left. Yeah, there you go. All right.
That means I'm enjoying it.
I know, but
Good.
I'm looking out for you, brother.
Always. Thank you, man.
Did they put you in a special cell for the last couple of days, or just when they came in and said, okay, here you go, come on out?
Yep.
So when you walk out, who's the first person you see? Because you told me you literally, what happens if it was going to happen, you'd walk out on the street, kind of, right? The door opens up and you walk out.
Yeah, I mean, there's an entry lobby to the prison.
Mm-hmm.
Once you've cleared security and you're on the public-facing side of it.
Yeah.
So my team walked in. Simone was there. AJ was there. Same team that had dropped me off.
Okay.
They came and grabbed me.
Wow, that must have been incredible.
It was incredible.
And then who's the first person you call?
Trying to think. I was so euphoric just to be with Simone and my team
Yeah.
that I wasn't even thinking about a phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
She probably called like my mom and my aunt.
Sure.
And got them on FaceTime so they could see my face.
Yeah.
But I didn't
With
even
that
really.
long beard.
Yeah, I had the beard. I wasn't even on my phone or thinking about that for an hour or two. I was really just in the moment with my my family and team that was there. Those were the people that have been walking with me in lockstep for the last 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Those were the people that helped me to become the best version of myself that I could do what I've done in this period of time. And they brought me to Miami a year ago to drop me off, and they came to pick me up in Louisiana as soon as I stepped out the
And
door.
did that feel like 5 years? Did that feel like a year? Did it feel like 3 years?
It
Did
felt
feel
like
like
it
2 weeks?
Felt like 3 years.
Felt like 3 years.
That 1 year felt like 3 years.
Wow. For you, yeah.
It really did.
Yeah. Did
What
you?
was, what was your first meal? What'd you get?
Yeah, I was gonna get to that.
Filet mignon.
Oh yeah.
Beautiful.
What did you crave?
Filet mignon.
Did you really crave steak?
Absolutely.
How was the prison
And
food, by the way?
and great burgers and beer.
Because
Oh,
there was
that's
no
great.
beef in prison. What they
How was the
cut
food
it
there?
out?
The food. Okay, so yeah. I could just talk for hours and hours about how terrible prison is for a lot of different
No, we don't
reasons,
want you to do that.
but-
Yeah.
yeah. But
Yeah.
the food's,
We don't want to give them that.
Yeah, the food's terrible.
Okay.
Food's terrible.
Yeah.
Boxes of bulk items used in the kitchen to make the food says not for human consumption.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, so it's
Wasn't this though? I mean, it's also a learning experience. Wasn't this a great test for you
oh man,
to learn what you can handle?
that's right.
I mean,
Absolutely.
they've given you a gift, and I said that from the beginning. Like when they were putting him in, I said they're giving him a gift. He's going to have a bigger voice. He's going to come out stronger, right? I was talking to Simone when you were in solitary, saying we need to get him to run for. I don't know if she ever told you this.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Congress, right? Or Senate or whatever. Like he needs to fucking run right now. I don't know if that's going to happen. If you're thinking about it,
I'm thinking about it.
I wanted to put you on the ballot while you were in solitary.
Yeah.
Like how do we do that? Like how do we make that happen? You
I
know?
think that actually almost happened. But.
Yeah. So
Cool to get elected while you're in prison for that.
why not?
Well, I was supposed to be there for 3 years, so that was in the cards. That's we're talking and considering every option's on the table. Let me put it that way.
How much do you think your Italian DNA helped you?
lot.
Your spirit, the Italian spirit.
A lot.
A lot, right?
Yeah, that's no joke.
Explain that.
I mean, Italians are no joke. I mean,
Yeah.
like being Italian is not just something we talk about; it's something we are and we do.
That's right.
You were confronted with adversity, but you were also confronting back, right? That's the Italian spirit. I ate yelling for breakfast in an Italian household.
Yeah.
When people would raise their voice at me, I'd say, "Look, every morning I heard yelling for breakfast. Like it doesn't faze me."
Look, I've learned since I was a kid growing up. There are two kinds of people in the world: Italians and everyone that wishes they were.
They were Italian. That's what
So-
mom used to say.
That was my dad's motto.
When you're Italian, you love everyone because
That's
God
right.
made people and they're just awesome.
Yeah.
But you know you're Italian and you know that you're special. You know you're strong.
Yeah.
And all that means is that you have a confidence and a joy in who you are. And that being Italian is great. So when you have that adversity come at you, like you said, you respond in kind only to say, I know who I am. You can't shake that.
That's right.
You can't take that away from me.
And you know it's true because people who even have a drop of Italian blood always claim the Italian.
That's right.
That's right.
They always. I'm Italian. First thing, right?
That's
What does
right.
that tell you?
Yeah, exactly. So, who? So you had mentioned Matt Gaetz. You felt he had your back
He did.
to some degree. What about what? Look, I say it as I see it.
Yeah, you should.
What did Trump do for you?
I can't praise President Trump enough. Okay, because every person can only do and should only do what God has called them to do and what's in front of them. And I don't know anyone, honestly, in the history of the entire freaking world. Truly, I don't know of any other figure in human history that has taken more opposition at the scale that he has taken it and has just never, ever quit. Now, he's flawed like we all are. So he makes mistakes. And when you are at that level, your mistakes are amplified. So it would be excusable or understandable. I shouldn't say excusable, but it would be understandable for him to respond to mistakes in some sense that, this isn't working out. But he never lets anything overcome him, including his own mistakes.
Yeah.
He knows what he believes in. He knows what's really important. He knows what's going on in the world because he's not stupid. And so I can't respect and honor him enough. So your question was, what did he do for me?
Inspired you.
Specifics.
That's
What it sounds like.
He inspired me, but he led by example.
Okay.
He did what needed to be done, no matter the cost, and especially when he knew the cost was going to be freaking ridiculous. Now, he couldn't have known they were going to shoot him.
Yeah.
And I couldn't have known that
Did that happen when you were in or out? You were
Well,
out
I
of
was
it.
in.
You were still in. I was
And
gonna
I
ask you about
couldn't have
that.
known that they were going to put me in solitary.
And you had heard about it or not?
No, I heard about it.
You heard about it.
Everyone in the prison came to find me. John Strand, they just shot Trump. Because I knew
Wow.
I was like the big Trump guy.
Wow.
No, but first of all, as it relates to the specific question, what has Trump done for me in the sense of J6? Trump has been unequivocal on the public record, not once, not twice, I don't know how many times. He said it many, many times. He's never backed down. He's acknowledged that the J6 situation was not honest, that there's government implication, that he did what he was supposed to do at the time, which that's all been proven now.
Yeah.
Like on the day of J6, he did what he was supposed to do appropriately as the
All right.
president. But since then, he has said that J6 is a misrepresented event to the public, which is an understatement, but it's of course the truth. And he has said he will release the hostages when
Yes.
he gets back in office.
Do you believe it?
Of course I believe it.
Okay.
God willing, he gets back in office.
Have you heard from since you got out?
I haven't heard directly from President Trump yet, but I'm sure I will be speaking with
Can
him
you get a
soon.
message to him for me, if possible? One message. And it's not anything to do with me. It has to do with everything.
Yeah.
So what I would like to see is the president follow what it says in the book of James about, well, to all of us, warnings about presumption, about tomorrow, boasting about tomorrow. If he would just start saying, and God willing, we will get this election in our favor. God willing, like it says in the book of James, if the Lord wills it, because tomorrow's promised to no man. And one of my personal lessons I've learned from my experiences is that you don't know what tomorrow holds. I was just coming out of the courthouse on a local case, just walking along, and then 14 FBI agents surround me. I was in shock. And you think you're going to go make a plan to go meet a friend or do this or that, and then you're just gaffled up and taken away. And it's like, then you understand, like, we can't make plans. We can't really. It's presumptive to presume, to be like so bold. But if the Lord wills it, and if I could say one thing to Trump, and I'm going to say to anybody I know that has his ear or knows someone, get this message to him. Because I remember cringing when he used to say, and when we're back in the White House back in 2020, I remember thinking, please say God willing. Because sure enough, he wasn't back in the White House in 2021, right?
Well, yeah, but he wasn't back in the White House because there's a reason why he wasn't back in the White House. It had nothing to do with him not acknowledging God in that sense, in that particular moment. He was not back in the White House because the election was stolen.
Of course.
Okay, but I have a point to this. The election was stolen because at the end of the day, this country is built for the citizens to run it. Like, Abraham Lincoln talks about a government of, by, and for the people, that it would not perish from the earth.
Yeah.
And Benjamin Franklin, when he helped to construct the republic, said it's a republic if you can keep it.
Yeah.
So he wasn't speaking to future presidents. He was speaking to the citizens. So the election was stolen because American citizens, for many, many decades, have gradually withdrawn from their responsibility as citizens.
Amen.
Yeah.
That is why the election was stolen. And your point about President Trump and your point about God being essential to the conversation. Not only do I agree with you, it is the most important point that I make in my messaging. It is the most important point in my book which I hope people will order and read at johnstrand.com. It's called Patriot Plea. And my central plea to people is to recognize that America only exists because men who were humble
Yes.
and honest enough to understand that without God we perish, built a nation based on one nation under God. And that's an idea and a promise that we've lost, and we'll lose the nation entirely unless we reclaim it. But as far as President Trump goes,
Yeah.
right, every individual is on a different plane, or a different, I should say, a different step in their stage in terms of spiritual growth, right?
And I'm not faulting him in the least. I think he's one of the greatest men that I've ever experienced in my lifetime.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is specific this. As a believer, we all need people to come around us to minister the word of truth, God's word to us. And I feel, I sense and I see that he's not necessarily surrounded by people.
But he actually is.
Is he surrounded by people that are giving him strong encouragement to be strong and go hard? Is he surrounded by people that are giving him words of knowledge about what God would have a godly man say? I don't necessarily think that, because you can tell a tree by the fruit that it bears, or out of the abundance of one's heart, the mouth speaks, and by your words you be justified, and by your words you could be condemned. I don't hear him evoking God enough. And only one thing I want him to evoke God's name in is when he talks about what's going to happen in the next election. I would just like this time for Donald Trump to say, and God willing, we will prevail. If he just does that, it invites God into it. And it's a very small thing, but the book of James goes hard on that. And I believe that the word of God is strong. And I say this in love. I'm not criticizing. I have to stop myself. Tony, I'm always saying God willing. Tony says,
Always.
see you tomorrow. I say, God willing.
Always.
I don't know what's going to happen to me when
That's
I leave Basilicos.
So Kim, I totally agree with you. But what I'm encouraging you in is that God's put that on our heart, so you should be faithful to pray that on behalf of President Trump in the country,
Of
Yes.
course.
and continue to speak that. But what I see when I observe President Trump specifically, and the topic that you're speaking to generally, is that I see the importance of reinserting God into the conversation and into our priority list. I see that happen. It gives me a lot of excitement and encouragement. I talk about it in my book a lot, but as a specific example, I've actually seen Trump evoking the name of God and recognizing its importance. He's done it for a while, but he's doing it more
Yeah.
in these
I
recent
think-
times. So
I don't know initially if he really believed what he was saying, but I think he's believing it more now, especially after getting shot.
especially after getting
And
shot.
I think that what you're saying is true. I think that people, you can say God willing all you want, but it's God gifted us this great country, and it's our obligation, right, to defend it and to advance it and to act on these gifts that God has given us.
Right.
Not just
Scripture
sit back and allow it to. Like, God gave us a great country. Let me just
Exactly.
sit back and
No.
enjoy it.
Faith-
enjoy the ride.
Faith without works is dead.
And you said
Yeah.
that you know them by their fruit, right? Which is
Yeah.
absolutely true. And I talk about that in the book a lot too.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
And
what is the trend? What is the people are always complaining and defaming President Trump
I'm
based
not.
on the words that he says?
I'm not.
No,
I'm
I know
not.
you were not.
But
But
what I'm saying is this. I think that really, when all is said and done and we step into eternity, all this stuff we've been dealing with, your suffering of a year incarcerated, or the early Christians that got burned at the stake or thrown to the lions, all of it, all of human suffering will be like a little boo-boo on a child's knee where they cry for a moment and then they go off into eternity and forget about it.
Yeah.
Because ultimately, all this, we just do the best we can with what we have. And I have to remind myself, that's why I say it out loud, I have to remind myself about how fragile life is, how fragile everything is. And so I say it because I want to have other people understand my frame of reference. And I love you, Donald Trump. If you're watching this, I love you. And I say this in love. It's not about you. It's not about me. It's not about John or Tony or anybody. Ultimately, it's about God being glorified. And win or lose, Trump, if you give it to God continuously, if you press into the Lord, that makes it more powerful. You have victory in heaven. And God willing, that will be done on earth as it is in heaven. So I pray and I hope, and I encourage him, and I don't mean this in a bad way, I'm just saying where the fruits are, perfect, or they have a slight blemish, I want Trump to start invoking the name of the Lord on this, because we are in serious troubled waters right now, and I'm feeling the desperation. You're coming out. I've got 9 weeks and counting now, so I have to go face the
It's like
music.
a swinging door. You're coming out, he might go in.
As it stands now.
I just want to encourage you, Kim, keep doing walk the talk that you're giving us. God has given that to you and put it in our heart. Believe in that.
He does.
Pray that. Yeah. So, but you can't. It's a nice sentiment. I wish Trump would say this or that, but that's really meaningless.
Not from you or me, because you know what? We put skin in the game. We did. We put skin in the game, and you have that right to say something because you put yourself on the line. You were there to protest bullshit, to stand against what was happening. And so because I believe, I don't want anything else. I don't want a movie deal or a book deal or, a payback or a reward or anything like that. I'm going to ask just one thing because my treasures are in heaven. One thing and one thing only. If I could ask one thing of the king who's serving because the King of Kings has him there or had him there, I'd say, please just return and reframe it back to God. And if you do that, that's my one heart's desire. I don't ask anything else. He doesn't have to say my name. He doesn't have to say, and John Strand and Kim Sorgente, those brave men that came to get my back or whatever. He doesn't have to say anything. All I want him to do is do right by our country, specifically through the power of God, by evoking his name, by reframing it to him, because that is where you put power truly on it. Trump's power is nothing without God.
Right, but Trump's power is only a reflection of the people in this country that are behind him.
Of course. And so I'm trying to be one of those people that...
and what I want to say, like I've said before, is Trump, if you're listening,
good leader.
if you're listening,
and he should be listening.
You need to establish the Department of Revenge and let me run it. And let me run it. Department of Revenge.
You could be a servant of the Lord.
There's a servant of the Lord.
There's
a lot of revenge.
Well, I think President Trump spoke.
What we need to take.
I think President Trump said it very effectively and very well when he said, "My retribution will be success." Right. So he's thinking correctly. He's thinking in a wise manner. And Jesus called us to be shrewd as serpents and harmless as doves. So again, what matters is the fruit and the action. Trump's actions are in favor of the people of this country, whereas all the enemies arrayed against him, which is the entire power of this earth,
deep state,
all of it, is actively seeking the destruction of the innocent people.
But a good steward weeds the garden. A good steward weeds the garden. If you're taking care of a garden, you got to get.
But let's go back. You guys are talking like he's a savior. He's not the fucking savior.
Exactly, that's the right.
He's not.
I don't give a fuck if he gets elected or not. It's up to us to take this country back.
Exactly right.
Bottom line.
But
he's just a man.
I'm encouraging him
4 years
because he's representative of the people.
Most of the time, but he says some shit that's not representative of me.
And so
he fucking donated. He donated money to Kamala Harris in 2012. I got a fucking problem with that.
That's when he was a mafia shakedown.
He wanted to bring in a fucking who was it? A trans to compete in a Miss Universe contest that he fucking owned, and he bent the rules to let this man in to compete as one. I got problems. He brought in J.D. Vance, who fucking hated him. He's surrounding himself with fucking traitors, and I got a problem with that. The people he should be surrounding himself right now is us. Yeah. The four of us.
Well, I mean,
he would fucking win.
He took Lewandowski back. That's a good sign.
Lewandowski was, look, he was banging, what's her name? Christina. He's not a good guy. Christina was doing that, behind her husband's back. Yeah. So, I'm sitting here listening to this, but I get pissed because, and there's the other thing that you were saying earlier, people are responsible. I'm sitting here tonight, there's a man standing here that's a gun dealer named Steve, and he's sitting here and he's talking about how, did you hear there's this new, the Supreme Court or some court, district court, I forget who it was, and your friend Russ probably knows, and he's talking about how, they passed, there was something that they voted on in favor. Do you know what it was?
Some kind of semi-auto?
passed a law that said you can only buy one gun every 30 days.
Yeah. But
The
then he was,
Supreme Court
then he
said
was
that.
excited because they pushed back on. Ooh, let's get excited. Why the fuck are you waiting for some judge to tell you when it's okay?
Yeah.
Why are you fucking waiting for a judge to save your ass? Why aren't all the gun dealers saying, look, I always say this, which you did, defiance. Defiance is the key to take this country back. And if all the gun dealers unified and said, fuck you, we don't care what your fucking law is. We dare you. We're waiting for you. That shit would go away so fast, it'd be over.
Yeah, COVID never would have happened
That's
if
right.
we'd have had that mentality.
Same thing.
We didn't even need guns involved. It was just like, are you going to let them put a diaper on your face and tell you that you can't go to school and work? That's absurd.
I'm 3 glasses of wine in. I'm fired up.
That's when you hit
Should
your
get that-
stride right there.
Should we open another
It's
bottle or
3.
what?
Yeah, open another. Yeah. So
But my conclusion and my main point was, as far as the things that you've mentioned, is I'm a huge fan of President Trump, and I can talk all day long about why that is. They're very well.
you're not a fan. You're a supporter.
I'm a fan and a supporter. I
Be
mean,
a-
I'm
be a supporter.
I'm objective.
He doesn't like the
fan.
word fan.
He's just a man,
Well, I mean, men are worthy of being fans of if they perform.
I guess.
I mean,
don't know.
he's-
Doesn't work for me, but that's fine.
That's fine.
Yep.
But I absolutely am a supporter, and I am proud of him and honored to have him as my president. I am. And like I said, I can back that up all day long, and there's not enough time, but that's not really the point. The point is, I think I said this at the beginning of our conversation.
Yep.
We're in a war. I did say that, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. Someone asked me,
Well,
What's the
they're
main-
in a war with us. We need to wake up. and
That's
say
right.
Yes.
We're in the war too.
They're fighting like it's a war. Our
Yeah,
side isn't.
that's right, Doug.
That's right.
We're in a war. We're under attack, and we're about to be slaughtered.
Right.
Okay? And I just took some bullets. Someone said, like, they shot at Trump, but they essentially missed. But they shot at me, and I went to prison for
they hit
almost 3 years until I got vindicated by the Supreme Court to get out. So I've taken some of those bullets. I know what this is about. This is a war. So we need to get our heads screwed on straight, like now.
Yeah.
Or more people are going to die.
Exactly.
More people are going to die. And I obviously mean that literally, because people are literally being killed by this crap.
Yeah.
But people's lives and liberty are being absolutely eviscerated in front of them with this digital mirage tricking them into thinking they're still free when they're not.
Yes.
This war could not be more real. It could not be more serious. It could not be more life and death existential.
It's
So-
fucked up. And you know what, John? Since you're here with us,
Well,
and
oh.
so Dr. Simone Gold's not present, right? It's just us guys. It's just us guys.
I see you taking gold.
I want to hear out of your mouth right now. It's fucked up. Come on. It's fucked up. Tony, is it fucked up?
It's so fucked
It's
up.
so fucked
And
up.
no.
Doug, is it fucked up?
What I'd rather hear him say is fuck them.
Okay, that does mean better.
It's fucked
Say
up.
that. Say that. Can you say that?
Fuck
Fuck them.
Fuck the enemy.
You said that for me. That's fine.
Come on. Come on. Come on.
He feels it.
I feel like
He feels it.
All right. Fuck them.
Fuck them. He said it for you.
Because this is war. And you know what? There's a time for war and a time for peace.
the time for war is now.
Yes.
Ecclesiastes 3:8.
Yeah.
And, in war, men fucking get angry.
But in war, you have to understand who the enemy is,
Yeah,
which way the bullets are flying.
of course.
You have to understand the territory you're in, the theater of war,
Of
right?
course.
I talk about the theater of war in my book.
Mhm.
Okay, so the theater involves the spiritual aspect, and we've talked about that. It involves the economic aspect, right? It involves the social and family aspect. We need to be thinking about all of these elements to the theater of war, and we need to understand who the enemy is.
It's the fuckers.
No, the war.
They're fucking with us.
but
Fuck those fuckers.
Yeah.
Christ had some pretty harsh language for the hypocrites and the Pharisees. And he called them names. There's nothing wrong with it.
But he would if he was hanging out with us right now. He would.
We're in a war against reality
Yeah.
right now. That's
Yeah.
what we're in.
Yeah.
Okay? So the enemy is anyone that is assisting the campaign to destroy reality.
The fuckers.
Yeah,
That's
they
fine.
are in a room.
But
So
President Trump is quite obviously, it's very clear that he is the tip of the spear going against the enemy forces that are trying to destroy
Okay, so what are you
reality.
going to do? What are you going to do if he gets elected? Because to me, for me, I feel like he's a billionaire. He should have contributed to everyone's defense financially. He didn't speak out much about it.
Like
He
Kamala.
will
Kamala was
dabble.
raising bail for
That's
rioters.
Great fucking point.
Kamala raised bail for BLM
She stepped
rioters
up and
in
she did, and
Minnesota.
she let out a guy that murdered.
Yeah.
Okay, and she's responsible, and voters need to remember that.
We need to match and even surpass their devotion.
He should, if he pledged even $1,000, just something as a gesture. I feel like he should have done it. I don't feel like he speaks out enough about it.
Yeah.
I feel like if he gets elected and he doesn't give a sweeping pardon to everybody.
Of course.
He's going to do that because he's.
And
already-
if
God
he
wills.
doesn't,
he's going to. It's on the record.
if he doesn't, will you be done with him at that point? If he doesn't,
Yeah, if he did not pardon the J6 hostages,
okay. So let me ask you this: Who?
that's a non-negotiable.
What? I love that. What J6 prisoner right now should we be thinking about that you know about that's suffering greatly? They all are, but there's got to be a few.
Jake Lang.
Jake Lang.
Yes.
Tell us about Jake Lang.
Yes.
So I'll only speak to what I can clearly remember off the top of my head, but he's been held for at least more than a year. I think maybe 2 years pre-trial.
No charges, right?
Yeah.
He hasn't even had his charges adjudicated, and he's been rotting in a terrible prison for more than 2 years. That's Soviet Russia bullshit.
Yeah.
That is not acceptable in the United States of America. It's just completely unacceptable.
Yeah.
The DOJ, I don't even know how to. It's just disgusting. The DOJ is shameful and it's disgusting.
So glad you're saying that.
Are you
The
familiar with
entire department should be flushed down the goddamn toilet.
Do you know my connection to Jacob Lang is?
I don't.
So, a tale of two paths. Jake Lang was there where Roseanne Boylan was killed. She was
Right.
crushed. All right?
I have heard this, yeah.
So, he was about 8 feet from where it happened on this side of her, and I was about 8 feet from where it happened on this side of her. And he was on camera at the Capitol afterward, I think talking through teary eyes, pepper spray, tear gas, talking about the woman that got killed.
Right.
And
Bludgeoned to death.
she was crushed before that happened. She was passed out, crushed.
But she's on videotape being.
Yeah.
I think they're beating her dead body, honestly, because I was there.
Either way, it's a police officer bludgeoning another human being.
I begged for
unnecessarily.
her life for 2 minutes. I was right there in the face of the line of officers saying, please, I don't want this woman to die. You can save her.
Right.
Please. She's going to die. I don't want her to die. And she was dying. She was under a mound of people that had fallen on top of her. And they wouldn't relent. They kept pushing, and nobody could breathe. Nobody could move. And when I turned my back, then they hit me on the top of the head with a metal baton, and blood came down my face. But I tried. And I got a nickname for that. When they were IDing, trying to figure out who I was, my nickname was Bad Samaritan Gray, because I had a gray hoodie on, and as they do, they invert things, right? So I was trying to be a good Samaritan, so they're like, more like Bad Samaritan. So my nickname was Bad Samaritan Gray for months and months until, they finally found out who I was, and then came and ambushed me. But I didn't know. All I know is this: a woman died, I pled for her life, and because of the path that God had me on, I didn't get caught up in those initial couple months after January 6th. And I ended up leaving my house. My wife was worried about me being there with the kids. So I ended up living on the lam, basically. I went and stayed at a sober living home. I don't even drink, but I stayed at a sober living home because I couldn't find any place to go. And it took them a long time to find where I was at. And by that time, thanks be to God, I think it lost a lot of momentum and steam. But my heart goes out to Jake Lang. I always think about him because he and I were there in the same area. There, but for the grace of God, go I. What they're doing to Jake Lang.
How long is he in for?
Since almost day one. Did they arrest him in January?
Has he been sentenced yet?
No, he hasn't even gone to trial.
He's been in
Jake
for 3.5 years.
People need to pay attention to him then and look at
3.5
his story.
years. And I
and think
remember
about him.
Kara Castronova from the Gateway Pundit contacted me, I think it was in 2022. And she wanted to ask me some questions like that. And she ended up doing an excellent piece on Jake Lang. And she had video and all this different stuff. She did him right, but it wasn't enough to affect change, but it was enough to make people know and be aware.
Yeah.
And we can't forget Jake Lang.
And this is why.
You can't forget any of the Jason.
And this is
but
why.
you said he's the most.
Yeah.
He's the most oppressed out of all of them.
And this is why a beautiful day in America is if Trump gets elected, he allows J6ers.
Ow.
He names honorable J6ers. He gives them the honor of executing Kamala, okay,
Who?
and Biden.
Well, treason is an executionable offense, right?
I don't give a fuck. They need to do it.
I'm agreeing.
I got something for you. So a friend of mine, I am friends with a Medal of Honor recipient. His name is John Baca. And John Baca served in Vietnam. And I was introduced to him. And he was on a ambush patrol in Vietnam. He actually lied to his mother when he went to Vietnam.
Okay.
He was
She
very
wanted
close
to
to
go.
her. She didn't want him to go.
Right, of course.
So he went. He told her he was on vacation or he was on a trip somewhere. He was in Vietnam, right? So this guy, he's in Vietnam, and as he's on ambush patrol, he sees a grenade thrown into his platoon. It lands, it bounces. You know, everything slows down when you're in a car accident or something bad happens. Everything's slowed down. He sees it bounce, boop, 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 right? And he thinks to himself, what am I going to do? I can run, I can pick it up, throw it back, or I can do the thing I know I'm going to do right now. My mom's going to be pissed. He threw his body on it with a helmet. He laid on his helmet
down,
and it
then
exploded.
helmet up.
Blew his guts out.
And he lived.
When he was laying there, he thought to himself, he said that it was the most peaceful moment of his life. He felt God more than ever. He said he
Yes.
felt an angel lift him up to just like sit up.
Right.
He was medevaced out. He survived, and
He was in the hospital for a year.
for a year,
Yeah.
he was awarded the Medal of Honor by Nixon. I think 1971. When his mom was next to him. I met him. He showed me his scars on his stomach, which are just unbelievable. You were there, Doug, with me when I met him. We become friends, and he's a great, great man. He reads the Bible every day. He stays home. He lives a very simple life, little apartment. He just reads and stays alone. It's a very. The apartment has hardly anything in it.
No,
Right?
no TV, no computer.
So
He
when
just is-
when I
living
met him,
his
even
life.
I said I was kind of nervous when I asked him, but I said, "Is the Medal of Honor in your apartment?" He said, "Yeah, I think it's right here somewhere."
Right.
He goes and grabs it off the shelf, pulls it out of a box, puts it in my hand, which is very, very cool. But anyway, so he gave me a Medal of Honor challenge coin, and he said, "Give this to somebody who's worthy." So I want to give it to you.
Oh, Tony.
It's a Medal of Honor
Wow. Thank
from
you.
John Baca.
This is amazing, man.
Yeah.
There's a park named after him
Yeah, Huntington
here in
Beach.
Huntington Beach.
There's a beautiful park with his name on it.
Wow.
He's got 2 parks
Where's the other one in
named
San
after
Diego?
him.
San
I
Diego?
can't remember the other ones. He's got 2 or 3. I think at least 2.
Yeah.
So we're now actually trying to. So we went and visited his park because he handed me a Medal of Honor flag, and I was like, "Where are we going to fly this, John?" And he said to me, "Fly at your restaurant." Where I go, "No. I'm not deserving of that. We got to find a place to fly it." So I go visit his park, and I notice there's no flagpole there. Like, fucking medal. He's got a monument, but there's no
Yeah.
flagpole. You need a fucking flagpole here.
Right.
So we've been talking to the City Council of Huntington Beach about putting a flagpole there to fly the American flag at least, but also I'd like to see this beautiful Medal of Honor flag fly underneath it, and you got to be there when that happens.
I'd love that.
Yeah,
Thank you for this. This is amazing.
he's a great
Because we are all about flags. We have a big, beautiful
I don't know if
flag
you saw
out
a
there.
40-foot flagpole that we have out there now.
Courage is contagious, and greatness inspires greatness, right? So, all the stuff we've been talking about, all the problems that we want to solve, all the opinions that we have, like, it all just comes down to, like you're always saying, Tony, are you going to be a man?
Mhm.
Right? Are you going to be a man?
Man up.
What does it mean to be a man?
Think about it.
What does it mean to be a man?
If we manned up, all these women wouldn't have to be fighting all these battles. You
Yeah.
see so many women on the front lines. I look at them and go,
Yeah.
"What are you doing here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why are you here right now?"
It-
Because my husband, he's at home watching football.
Right.
Right?
We
It's
need men
disappointing.
to step up and be men, and that
Exactly.
means knowing what's the difference between right and wrong, and knowing when it's time to do the right thing, even when it's going to cost you.
Yep.
That's what being a man is.
You are blessed to have someone like Simone get your back.
I'm very blessed. Yes.
And you know what? I know she's, a person of an impressive background, but I would like to see her just pour into you
she
and,
is.
like, Because really, we need that shift across Western civilization where the men are taking the reins of this. The men are taking up the fight. And the women are saying, you know what? We're going to let you men, not just let, we're going to encourage and prosper and push you guys to do this. Because, I remember at the Board of Supervisors back in 2020 when Simone Gold was doing her thing and all these local activists were doing their thing. We had 120 at the Board of Supervisors saying, not OC, you're not locking us down, you're not shutting us down. And then after a few weeks, they sent 60 Black Lives Matter people, which I expected to happen. And after that, it went from 120. Next time, it was only 12. And you know why? Because it was 90 to 95% women. And when it got rough and there was confrontation and what you gonna do, bitch, and pulling their masks off and spitting in people's faces and yelling, we fortunately had a lot of people who, I'm gonna say this though, they're not meant for the fight because the fight is meant for men.
Well,
they disappeared.
Yeah,
they didn't come back. They wilted.
Men have disappeared. Now, the fight is meant for all of us, whether you're a man or a woman. God has a place for you in the fight.
Of course.
But the roles are different.
That's
supportive
right.
and
that's
front
correct,
line.
Tony.
The
Now,
roles.
here's the thing. Remember I told you that the war is a war on reality. The war is a war on truth. Okay, so truth comes from God, and because God built the world. So it works according to him because he's in charge and control of it. He set a system where men and women are equal but have different roles.
Mhm.
So, but because the war is against reality and truth, what the enemy is doing is trying to dilute or misconstrue or just confuse and deceive us about what truth is. So then people misunderstand what their roles are.
Yeah.
Okay, and the result of that is that men predominantly have withdrawn from their responsibility, and that leaves women holding the bag, so to speak, right?
Mhm.
So I am impressed and grateful for the women that have been strong and are fighting, but it's not so much that women shouldn't be there; they should be there. But men have a responsibility to take the first step, and then when you take the first step and you take the right step, things flow properly from that, right? So all of us need to be reclaiming what our responsibility is, whether we're men and women, whether we're Americans or from other places. Like, we're all humans.
Yep.
There's one race of people that God put on this earth, and there's one code of conduct that he gave for all of us. So we need to understand what that is and reclaim that. But we need to do that as individuals. So we really need to take the approach of, what is God calling me to do?
Yes.
Right?
It's calling me to be the best American I can be.
Yeah.
We may all be humans, but some humans are murderers, some are tyrants, and many aren't Americans. And I've been given American as my role, my stewardship.
Are you talking about Democrats, by the way?
Yeah, they're not Americans. But Tony, what's the Roman ruling on this?
You're an American, act like it.
Yes.
There you
It's
go.
simple as that.
It is pretty simple.
It's as simple as that.
But also you believe like men need to step up. I mean, it's just men here.
Well,
Right?
Well, what I always say
Yeah,
is,
men
first
do
of
need
all,
to step up.
what I say is, it doesn't make any sense that a man can vote Democrat ever. And when we leave this earth, we can leave at least with both of our balls intact. And if you're a Democrat, you're lucky if you leave with one. So they are the enemy. They are the fucking enemy. You know that.
I mean,
There's no Democrats, I guarantee, that support you. None. Zero.
I assume you're correct, but I don't
Fucking
see
zero.
people that align themselves or identify themselves with the Democrat Party necessarily as the enemy. Many
I
of
do.
them are supporting the enemy's efforts, and that's a problem.
I understand the
They're
support
the
though.
enemy.
Right? But it's I'm more focused on the ideas. I'm more focused on the difference between what's true and false.
If an enemy combatant is misguided, there's still an enemy
Still the
combatant.
enemy. Yep.
And until they're humiliated or humbled or come to their senses, they are attacking us and they're waging war. We better understand that they're waging war on
In
us.
the days when America actually won wars, we bombed everything. We
Yeah,
bombed. We
no-
did not say,
No
oh well.
compromising with them,
There was no compromising. They were the enemy. You supported them. You put them in office.
When they
you're the
surrender-
enemy.
when they
you
surrender-
surrender, we'll talk it out
You know why?
when it's over.
So here's the thing. The least tolerant side throughout history of any struggle, the least tolerant side always
Always wins. Absolutely.
Always, without a doubt. We can't be sitting here saying,
Yeah.
oh, so much for the tolerant left, because you know what the response is? Yes. We are intolerant of Nazis or KKK or fascists or whatever the fucking name they want to fucking call us. Trumpers or Drumfers or whatever their stupid saying is. They are being intolerant, and guess what? It's working for them. And we need to start being intolerant because I'm seeing a lot of fucking bullshit. Right and left, so much so that my head is spinning. My head is spinning.
So
Mine too.
I describe the misunderstanding of the word tolerance in my book.
Yeah.
Okay, so people don't understand what true tolerance actually is. They don't understand what most things are. They are ignorant, they are deceived, and they're distracted.
Yes.
Okay, so we got to focus in. We got to reconnect to our roots. Like go back to the beginning and figure out what 2 and 2 is, and that equals 4. Like really basic stuff.
Yeah.
So true tolerance does not mean that you put up with evil.
Yeah.
Okay. True tolerance means that you respect each person's right to have their own opinion.
Yes.
Okay, but they don't have their own right to their own facts or to demonize or persecute you because your opinions don't comport with their idea of what reality is.
Yep.
Okay, so you have to understand what true reality actually is.
Yeah.
And people have lost that.
So, finish your wine, man. You know, you drive home. So the wine we're having tonight is a Barbera.
It's great, by the way.
Barbera, the great Barbera is found in the best Barbera grapes are found in the Asti region of Italy. You love Italy, right?
I love it.
In the Piedmont region. So in the Piedmont region of Italy, it's just rolling hills, it's forests, it's vineyards. They actually make the wine. The wine we have right now is the one we're drinking tonight is Barbera di Asti. Like I said, the Asti means of Asti, right?
Is the Piedmont the central part of Italy or what is
I
it?
think it's more north.
North?
And so they actually make that wine in a they make it in toasted barrels. So it gives it sort of like a vanilla flavor, cherry, raspberry. And it was really nice. So it was nice to have
beautiful.
that. And then the cigar that I have is a Monte Cristo. As you know, I don't smoke Cuban cigars because they're fucking communists.
Yeah.
This one is a Nicaraguan cigar. It's called the Monte Cristo White Series Toro. It's made again with the shade wrapper of Connecticut,
Yeah,
where you're from,
wrappers, yep.
the area where you're from. Dominican and Nicaraguan filler. It's got a Nicaraguan binder, and it's got a flavor of leather, spice, cedar, and even baked bread. So it's really nice. But
Beautiful.
and I'll smoke this to you tomorrow. I'll be thinking about you. But it was a gift for the birth of my kid. I don't know if you know I have a son.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it's great.
It's amazing.
Amazing. It is amazing.
Another warrior.
Thanks.
Here.
So cheers to all of you.
Hold on. One more.
And my son will know about you, John Strand.
Thank you, sir.
You will meet him.
I can't wait.
God willing.
I know. So John Strand has a he had a
Salute, ricchezza,
he had a long
amore.
he had a long drive from L.A. Right? You were saying in L.A. And he's got an early morning tomorrow.
I do. It's back to work.
So I will walk him out
All right.
and say goodnight to you guys. Until next time.
So
Buonasera.
it's a pleasure
Buonasera.
seeing you again.
Thanks for
Congratulations.
thanks for
You
being
really
here. I appreciate you
you're
guys
a
a lot.
warrior.
It's been a hell of a war, and it's not over yet. So we got to keep fighting.
We
for
got to
what
keep fighting.
It's
All
a
right, John.
stewardship.
You eat enough?
Yeah, thank
You're
you. It's
good?
amazing.
All right, man. Walk you out.
All right,
I'll
brother.
be back. See you next time in a couple weeks.
Oh man, very inspiring.
Week, 2 weeks, what?
1 week. Very inspiring.
So anyways, this Costa Mesa Trader Joe's.
Yes. We're
the-
back to Trader
The
Joe's.
guy, I mean, you know what? You could tell a lot. The guy's sitting there, he's talking to the gal, he's trying to speak Spanish and trying to impress her like that. So I'm waiting. I'm being patient.
Yes.
I'm being patient, waiting for him to finish. And then when he finally, lets her go, I just made a little comment, like small talk, right? And it wasn't because I wanted to connect with the guy or anything, but I just wanted to see. And he had nothing for me. He just looked at me and just moved on,
Yeah.
snubbed me. And I realized, this guy, it's not like he's just a personal guy.